This Rise and Shine podcast series has been made possible by the generosity of the Zeidelman Family Foundation, which is committed to the unity and continuity of the Jewish people through meaningful and relevant Jewish education and wisdom.
I grew up with the celebration of youth culture, the power of the teenager, both economically and as a standard of beauty. No wonder we look at aging as a decline rather than the approaching of our most blazing colors. But this is not the Jewish way.
This is Rise and Shine, a podcast that offers timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations to fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note. Here is Adrienne Gold-Davis.
In Canada, autumn is the most exquisite season. If you've never seen a full canopy of trees over a ravine, for example, and seen it turn to shades of red and gold and yellow and wine, then you have never seen one of God's most glorious creations. So when I was a child, my father used to take us on these Sunday drives in the autumn to see the leaves turning color. Now, I have always imagined that term Sunday drivers was coined for our family because we'd get into the back of my father's station wagon with all the seats lying flat, and we'd roll around back there, all four of us, driving north of the city to begin our breathtaking drive into the country. Well, nowadays, you'd have to drive a long, long way to leave the city of Toronto, which has urban sprawled so far in so many directions. But I remember those drives because we were always chasing beauty together as a family. Just 15 minutes north of our suburban home was this wildness, this unspoiled wonderland of blazing color that used to thrill us as we drove lazily by. Now, perhaps in the spring, we would go to parks and flower gardens, and in the winter, we would drive through the other neighborhoods to see the gorgeous Christmas lights. And in hindsight, I see now that I was raised with a great appreciation for all of this world's bounty through the eyes of my parents, and especially through the eyes of my mother, who was captivated by nature and, like the good Englishwoman she is, tended her own beautiful garden in our backyard. But nothing compared to the beauty of the tree in its last phases, just before the leaves completely fell and left the tree bare and covered in winter snows. You know, we used to collect those leaves and we'd press them into like heavy textbooks. My mom taught us to capture those moments, both literally and emotionally, and to always preserve what could be preserved. And we thought those pressed leaves were so beautiful. Now, I'm a lot like my mother. If I see something beautiful, I have to stop and look at it, or I have to take a picture of it, or I have to smell it, or feel it, or hug it, or bite it. And I have this vivid memory as a child of my mother leaning over the kitchen sink, eating a ripe mango, the juices dripping down her chin into the sink, and her eyes just alight with pleasure. A sensualist is my mother. Let me tell you a little bit more about her. She just turned 90 years old, and I had the privilege of hosting her 90th birthday party this fall. And what a year it's been for her. My mother has struggled with health issues over the past 2 years after a lifetime of impeccable health. And through it all, she remained unfailingly positive, endlessly grateful for our love and support, and kept a smile on her face. And over these past 2 years, she's taught us more and role modeled more about how to live a good life than in all of the other years combined. So what does the Torah teach us about the process of aging, about what it means to grow old? Well, Rabbi Noah Weinberg, may his memory be blessed, used to say that the opposite of old is not young. The opposite of old is new. You want to stay young, so stay new. And he would say that it was equally a tragedy to see a 90-year-old woman who is the same as she was at 89 as it would be to see a 1-year-old child who's exactly the same as they were the day they were born. That life is for continual growth and development. That's what keeps us new and young. So my mother is 90 years young, but I admit I didn't always quite see it this way. I never appreciated the wisdom that was in front of me because I never really held by the concept of having respect for one's elders. You see, I grew up with the celebration of youth culture, the power of the teenager, both economically and as a standard of beauty. I remember the expression and saying this expression, never trust a person over 30. But the viewpoint on this from a Jewish perspective is totally opposite to that of modern society. In an essay that was adapted from the talks of the late Lubavitcher Rebbe, we learn the following. Longevity and old age are both considered in the Torah one of the greatest possible blessings. And how about this one? Many years bring wisdom, says the biblical verse. The older scholars get, the more settled their minds become, says the Talmud. And in this case, settled means being able to process and understand and integrate with wisdom. Every one of the members of the Sanhedrin, which was the Jewish court of 70 elders that governed during Roman times, would normally have to be aged over 70 in order to join the council. Moreover, the Torah tells us to rise before old people age 70 or older, even if they're not Torah scholars, out of respect for the trials and tribulations that they have undergone. See, the concept of retirement just doesn't exist in the Torah, because from birth till your last moment, a Jew is permanently enlisted in the army of God, for he is created to serve his master and cannot resign his post. On the contrary, the later years of life, free of pressures to provide for a growing family, free from the hustle and bustle of the business world, are an excellent opportunity for intensified Torah study, they write. And now one can finally make up for lost time that was lost during the younger years. In short, from the Jewish perspective, things that get older can get more and more beautiful. You know, the word for beauty that we often see in the Torah is hadar, which can also mean to dwell, or like the English, to endure. Compare and contrast that to the modern version of beauty, which is rooted in the first blush of youth. But green leaves are ubiquitous. No one takes a Sunday drive to look at the green leaves, even though there you're going to find a multitude of hues and shades to thrill you also. You know, the great poet Robert Frost once wrote a very famous piece about the progression of time that he called Nothing Gold Can Stay. Let me read you some of it. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. Beautiful poem. But sadly, it's talking lamentedly about the passing of time, that we're golden only when we're green and young, and that it's the hardest to hold on to than when we're in the flowering of youth, but that passes even quicker, and then it's all over, it sinks to grief. So no wonder we look at aging as a decline rather than the approaching of our most blazing colors. This is not the Jewish way. In the book of Proverbs, we read that the crown of splendor is old age. Not only does the gold stay, it grows more splendid. So this week, can you take a look at your feelings about aging and about what you might have to gain from those around you with many, many more years of experience? Can you seek out opportunities to ask them, what do you know now that you wish you knew at my age? Can you ask them for the wisdom they acquired along their journey? Let's not just appreciate the beauty of the tree in its final colorful stages of leaf, but also of the human being who is wearing a beautiful canopy of gray.
Thanks for listening to Rise and Shine. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Momentum Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join Adrienne again next time for more timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations that fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note.
This podcast was sponsored by the Zeidelman Family Foundation. Spread the wisdom. Inspire Jewish individuals around the globe by supporting Momentum's podcasts. To sponsor, contact podcast@momentumunlimited.org. You're listening to a Momentum podcast. For unlimited inspiration, wisdom, and empowerment, visit momentumunlimited.org.